And looks like you guys are on. Go ahead.
Okay.
Great.
So welcome everybody to our Meet the Developer series. Tonight's session is on art, innovation, and collaboration. I'm James Field. I'm a principal with Sienda Partners, and I'm really excited about this one. I worked for a large financial institution. I ran an entrepreneurial business inside a very highly regulated company for about 30 years. And the company was always trying to stimulate collaboration and innovation. And we've been at our E&A in place on Midtown for about 35 days. And I've already seen with this team more collaboration and more potential for productive innovation than I saw in maybe 30 years working in a big company. And so it really gets me excited to think about some of the things this team can accomplish at Midtown. And so that's really part of what I wanted to get out here tonight. So Bill, you want to?
Yeah, well said, James. I too. So Bill Guthrie with KDC. I'm the Senior Vice President of Land Development and been there for 25 plus years. And the whole concept of collaboration and innovation as it relates to development and reinvigorating an existing community or imagining what a community can be is so important about what we do every day. And for me personally, just the addition of the art and the history that's already on the campus and the opportunity as it relates to art and incorporating all that into what Midtown is and what Midtown will be is super exciting. So looking forward to sharing with you all tonight, our team, and some of these initial thoughts.
Sage, why don't you?
Sure. So we've talked before in previous Meet the Developer series meetings about the concept of this being a team of collaborators and what Midtown could look like as an innovative district. And we're really excited today to get a chance to really sort of show some of that in action. We have some new faces here tonight who are new collaborators. And you're going to get a chance to, we're hoping that people have a chance to ask us questions related to these things so that we can really help to start demonstrate how innovation and collaboration and an artistry are not just part of the finished end result, but also a part of the process of how this whole thing is going to move forward.
And I'm just going to make a quick introduction on behalf of the city and all the efforts that all the departments and the mayor has put in and the city council has put into getting us to this point. This was a request for developers and businesses to participate in the development of Midtown. And it was a great process because we got so many interesting and excited developers and businesses who were interested in either developing and or locating in Midtown. And so the selection of the team Midtown was selected on May 4th. The city council voted to enter into a process in which the developer would begin thinking about engaging people and actually developing an implementation plan, a development plan for the future of Midtown. They are just at the beginning. Right now, they're gathering lots of information and wanting to hear from people about their ideas. And so this Meet the Series is an opportunity to ask questions so that you get introduced to the development team more deeply. I do want to say that it's been exciting so far over the past 35 days that James mentioned in working with his partners at KDC and Sienda, and as well as all the local partners that they're working with based in Santa Fe, which is one of the main reasons why this team, Team Midtown, was selected, was the strength of their team to bring all the knowledge, the experience, the commitments of local firms, businesses, and developers that participate on their team. So I'm going to turn it over to Team Midtown to do an introduction about arts and innovation and creativity in Midtown, which is also one of the priorities that was set in the Midtown Planning Guidelines. And like many of the things that are articulated in Midtown Planning Guidelines, Team Midtown's taking them very seriously and moving them forward. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and then we'll turn it over to questions and answers when you're ready for me to start asking questions.
Okay. So why don't we have the new faces on our Meet the Developer series tonight? Starting, Mary, how about starting with you and then working our way around?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, I'm Mary Songus. I'm the Associate Dean of Research at the College of Fine Arts at the University of New Mexico. I also teach in the art department and was the founder of experimental art and technology in that department. And I'm happy to be here. And I've been working with Tim on the aquifer idea to participate at Midtown.
Great. David.
Good evening. I'm David Breaker, president of the Microgrid Systems Laboratory. We are an innovation consortium focusing on grid modernization technologies and architectures, leading to a more sustainable and resilient energy system. And I'm super excited to be part of this conversation tonight. We are all about creative problem solving, and we are structured as a collaborative consortium of some 15 organizations, several of which are on your screen right now. And we have long-standing and very fruitful collaborative relationships with many members of this team. So looking forward to your questions and more.
Erin.
Yes, hi, my name is Erin English, and I'm a Santa Fe-based engineer with Biohabitats, which is a national consulting firm. We are a benefit corporation, a B Corp, and we're focused on regenerative design. And specifically here at Midtown, we would be bringing perspective, a national perspective on innovation in water sustainability, in deep green water infrastructure opportunities, particularly those that might interact with the potential for exposing infrastructure as public art and engaging art around water, green infrastructure, and urban ecology.
So Jamie, first time on the channel, not new to Santa Fe.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. If it's all right, I'd like to start with something that we always do at our public events at the Art Institute, which is a land acknowledgement. And what we like to do is acknowledge the injustices and the enduring trauma that colonization of this land has imposed on Indigenous peoples, and ask all of us wherever we are to reflect upon the experiences, the histories, and the contemporary lives of the Indigenous peoples here in New Mexico and around the world. Santa Fe is located on unceded lands that are the traditional territories of Pueblo, Nade, and Southern Ute peoples, and have also been long been home to the Dene, the Navajo. And just want to add to that, that I think that what we're seeing and engaging in the public realm in these last few weeks are a direct result of these injustices and traumas that Black and Indigenous people have endured over generations. And just to add a sense of optimism, that I think that projects like this, large scale urban projects, are an opportunity to really address and redress these issues. So thank you for allowing me to do that. And I'm the executive director of the Santa Fe Art Institute. Our mission is to cultivate creative leadership and invest in community culture in place to reimagine a more equitable world. And we do that in many ways. We host an international residency program, and we also have fellowships and public programming. And we've been on the campus for over 20 years now. And so we are very invested in the future of the Midtown area. We have a separate long-term lease with the city, but we're very invested and very excited for this team and all of the conversations around collaboration. So thank you.
Talia.
Hi, I'm Talia Kosh. I am an attorney and educator in Santa Fe. I founded New Mexico Lawyers for the Arts, so my work is primarily with creatives and filmmakers. I'm also on the Governor's Council of Film and Media Industries in the state of New Mexico, and work with a number of nonprofits in Santa Fe. And I have been working primarily with Sage and Justin with regard to the Garson Theater. So happy to be here.
Great. So Daniel, you know, we had talked as a group about maybe getting some of our teammates to talk about how we view art, innovation, and collaboration, and just see if we can, you know, this is intended to be a roundtable discussion as the questions start coming in. And so I think it might be a good idea if you're okay with it. How about if I kick that off and maybe do a quick round of a few of our teammates talking a little bit about how they view art, innovation, and collaboration, and then we can take the questions from the
Sure.
YouTube.
I think that's a great idea because, you know, I think, you know, we've talked a little bit about this too. One is to introduce yourselves. That was amazing introductions from all of you guys, by the way. But also to provide an opportunity to introduce yourself so that we provoke questions from the public. So yes, go for it, James.
Okay, I'm going to start out and I'm going to give an example of something, and it's not exactly, well, it's on target, but not entirely on target. We, in a prior life, we did some developments in underserved neighborhoods, you know, that had been disinvested, frequently wiped out by urban renewal, sometimes had public housing. And one of the things that always made a difference to us was to look backwards and try to figure out what the history meant to the people that had been there for many, many years, and then try to incorporate that into art and design elements in the reimagined community. And so when I think about art, you know, people tend to gravitate towards what they like, and they sometimes get themselves sort of narrowed in. But you know, when we were able to pull history together with public art and create, take that into design elements and business and buildings and sort of set a tone for our neighborhood, it did a really great job of tying tying the new neighborhood back to the history and acknowledging the people that had been there before, and as Jamie pointed out, may have been treated very poorly. And so we'd that's one of the things I liked about the opportunity here to discuss art in terms of redevelopment. Jamie, can you give us like a quick, if we were going to think a little bit about, think broadly about art, what suggestions would you have for us to get us out of whatever it is we're most comfortable with?
Thank you. That's a great question. And not a question that people often ask around art. I think that what we're really invested in is a thriving neighborhood that benefits all of Santa Fe. And really the question that we're asking ourselves is what would it look like if we collectively invested in the artistic talent and the distinct expressions, the history and creativity of our own community. I actually think it's a very exciting time for the arts in Santa Fe and everywhere, but as sort of a mecca for the arts in many ways, it's time for us to think about what that means as we head into the 21st century. Art is changing a lot. Artists are breaking boundaries between art and activism, between traditional and contemporary, between conceptual and commercial practice, and between disciplines. Artists do not stay within the boxes, no matter how carefully we construct that for them. And they're also exploring thrilling new genres with technology and performance art and social practice and mixed media. So we really feel that if we want to remain an international art center into the 20th century, that this is a really great opportunity at the Midtown site to start to bridge these exciting disciplines and genres. And so what we've done is start this emerging collaboration. We have 9 local and regional art and design, workforce development, and educational institutions that are interested in collaborating and really imagine this is the heart of a vibrant arts ecosystem that moves beyond the gallery to really support emerging media and art forms alongside traditional arts and culture. And also to really think about what we need to do better in terms of investing in local artists and regional and indigenous and Hispanic, Chicano, and Latinx artists and cultures and communities.
So I might, that's great, by the way. I knew we couldn't stay on a single topic if we let ourselves run a little bit. We're going to get into all the other topics on this, and that's great. That's what we need to do. How about the educators? I'm going to throw this out to the group, but can you talk about the evolution of arts programs in institutions of higher learning? Maybe just tell us, give us a quick update on kind of where it is, where it's headed, and how we might think about it differently.
Yeah, I can add to what Jamie's saying, and I think to answer the question, I think the healthy, vibrant state of art has to be constantly changing and evolving to respond to what's happening in communities, but in the world. So even in the long or short 19 years that I've been in my department, I've seen it change, and I've seen our definitions of art change, and what constitutes art. And sometimes it's difficult to change those things within an institution. But what happens is the artists engaging with the students, and the students engaging with community, and have changed the department considerably. And I think that things like community engagement was not a word that you heard when I was first hired there. And now it is a vital component of how artists create work. They're aware of their communities. They're not creating work in a vacuum. Our students are incredible, and they are a force for change within and outside of the department. And so I think I'd say both the artists in academia in a lot of ways, and the students drive that change, which is a really healthy and innovative way to redefine art consistently. And I've seen that happen, and it's incredible. And I have incredible students who have been doing work not only in community engagement, but innovative, recreating what it means to be an artist.
Great.
Can I add on to that, James?
Sure, please do.
I think, I totally agree with Mary. I think inclusion is very, very important. I think at UNM, the Arts Lab, which is Art Research, Technology, and Science, was a lab that was very interested in collaboration. So partnering up with IAIA in Santa Fe, partnering up with the National Hispanic Cultural Center are very, very important. And really that these organizations have a global kind of visibility, and being able to allow our students the opportunity to have access to those great communities, I think really pushes us in the direction that we're a destination. And I think that's really, really important to Midtown, that we are such a great resource in terms of the global market of art, and that we could really allow our students the opportunity to have accessibility to those organizations and the people in the state.
So anybody else want to weigh in real quick?
Hi.
Oh, Megan. Hi, Megan.
Hi, so my name is Megan McGarity. I'm the interim director for the Santa Fe Higher Education Center. We're a learning center district and built by the Santa Fe Community College. And I think one of the exciting things for me in being able to participate in this project and work with people like Tim is that we have an opportunity to partner in a way that our two institutions have never partnered before. So it's kind of new relationship building for the entire community, but it's also new opportunity building as well. And so one of the things that I think is important to acknowledge is that this is opening pathways and giving students access to education from UNM that they may not have otherwise been able to access. And so I think this collaboration and this partnership is going to lead to some really exciting opportunities for the people that we serve here in our community.
Great. So David, Aaron, and I might throw Alexi in on this one. I expect that we kind of delve into design and we start looking at, how are we really going to pull this thing off and start building things that we'll need to foster a lot of innovation and a lot of collaboration. You guys got any thoughts on how we should push that forward, and where, you know, where art might fall into that into that mix?
Say a few things about that. For me, this goes to Sage's point about process. I think about art as a verb rather than a noun, and as a way of going about solving really difficult problems. Energy infrastructure and related infrastructures such as water, transport and mobility, telecommunications, these are very, very challenging problems, especially these days with climate change. It's been said that if Thomas Edison were alive today, he would recognize the power grid. And that's largely true. It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but largely true. We've got 100 years of incumbency and legacy that need to be radically modified very, very quickly. So with that as context, I think the arts and skills of creative problem solving are essential to this. I actually began my early career on the creative side of music and film. So I bring those skills, approaches, and processes with me, but I also try and institutionalize them in what I do and the way I structure things. I said earlier that the Microgrid Systems Lab is structured as a consortium, and that's at the essence of this. We have very, very different kinds of participants in that consortium, and we work together across 4 programmatic areas of research in the strict sense, NSF funded research, a partnership with UNM and the other universities and national labs. Innovation activities per se in the areas of technology, commercialization, entrepreneurial support, demonstration projects. We're building a couple of microgrids at Santa Fe Community College, and an education component, which is the primary relationship with SFCC and the Smart and Microgrid Training Center that we're standing up there. Becky can speak a little bit more to this, but that'll give you the idea. You have to approach these difficult problems from many facets, many directions, and engage in fruitful creative collaborations.
Alexi, I think you were about ready to chime in.
I did. I just a few thoughts, and I was going to then turn it over to David. But David, thanks for beating me to the punch there. I think this is really an amazing and unique opportunity for Santa Fe. So to put this all in context, I mean, going on what Jamie was saying earlier, Santa Fe has been traditionally known as a center for the arts. And we really base our whole economy on tourism in large part related to the arts, our historic architecture, the great Southwestern art that was here, and the great modernists like George O'Keeffe that were here in New Mexico going way back. I think now, though, with all the groundbreaking events that have been happening really these past few years, and especially these last few weeks, these last few months with COVID, I think we're starting to see how we as a community really need to rethink what our economy is and what it's based on and how it even operates. While there's always going to be a great part for integration of the arts and that historical art form into our tourism industry, we need to start thinking forward and how can we take these massive changes that are happening around the world and the amazing changes that are happening in the art world that Jamie so eloquently described and really turn them into a positive force for how we plan and think about Midtown. And I'm really interested in the collaborations that we're going to be partaking in with the community, with the arts community and artists, along with the developers to see how can we find ways of facilitating new ways of doing art, new ways of public engagement and public expression within the overall design of Midtown, and how that could help to form the physical environment. And on top of all that, how we integrate in energy, water, and sustainability issues into a coherent whole that supports all of these things. And that's what's so exciting to me to be a part of this process.
I'd like to build on that in terms of looking at innovation and collaboration. I think those two things are going to be essential if Midtown is what I think it is, which I think it's an opportunity for Santa Fe to actually create the most water-wise, deep sustainability development in our modern history that speaks to the same energy Alexi mentioned there in terms of looking forward. So we know we have some other looming crises beyond the pandemic in terms of climate change and what that might do to our water cycle and our watershed. And so Midtown becomes the place for Santa Fe to pilot and to innovate and to collaborate on what it means to future-proof ourselves. in terms of climate resiliency and adaptation around water, urban ecology. And that goes to like how we design the landscape, how we integrate the buildings, what water we are able to harvest and reuse. And honestly, like to get there at this scale can't be done by just a designer or those of us who are engineers who like to work through that. I really do think that input from the community, input from the like vast, deep, long knowledge we have of people here who know water and who know the landscape and who have a different relationship than anywhere else I've worked. We need that input here, I think, at Midtown. And also, we don't value sometimes what we cannot see or experience. And this goes to water, where in a conventional situation, we flush the toilet, and the water goes away, we turn on the sink and it comes to us. I think Midtown has the opportunity to embrace the artistic community, the artists, to help us reimagine what it means to kind of daylight our infrastructure, to bring it into the public's consciousness, to be able to engage youth, community, et cetera, around even just simple decisions we might not always think about. So to me, those are the opportunities that we can't reach if we don't innovate and collaborate.
So Daniel, I think you probably are getting a feel that we could probably talk all night if I keep asking questions. But I think the public needs to get a chance to ask us some questions, and we may give some people a chance to wrap toward the end. But I'm just looking at the clock here, thinking we probably need to get the public engaged here and let them. We've been talking about it, so let's hear what they have on their mind. Uh-oh, you're on mute. There we go. Muted again. There we go.
Thanks for you,
Daniel.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay, do we have a plan B for getting the questions out there?
Daniel, I think, wait.
Yes, this is Rich Brown. I can sort of help with questions if Daniel
Okay.
not gonna mute. So we'll see if Daniel has out. So I'll start with the questions and then Daniel can signal when he's ready to go. He can just put the he's ready to
I
go.
think he's now unmuted if you wanted.
Ready to go. Sorry about that.
Oh, there you go, Daniel. Go. Perfect.
So there's a lot of questions right now, and that I've heard over the past year or so about just the cultural assets, the community cultural and arts assets that surround Midtown, and how might, in actuality, how might the programming and or future location of arts and culture, what does that look like for Midtown in the future that actually recognizes and sustains and preserves and highlights and enhances the cultural assets that surround the Midtown site? And is anyone taking stock of those? And is there a strategy for engaging that?
So Daniel, I think the best way to get to that would be maybe to have Tim and Jamie talk about their collaborative effort a little bit. That's more rooted in the community, and then we might want to just talk a little bit about some of the assets actually on the site. So Tim, Jamie, y'all want
to go ahead and start?
Sure. Yes. So as I noted before, we're highly invested in a good future together moving forward. And we applied for and received a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. It's an Our Town grant that's very focused on creative placekeeping. And so our focus through that has been working with UNM and Little Globe and others to start an engagement process with really looking at the neighborhoods surrounding Midtown that will be most impacted by the development. And so we had a really fantastic, thanks to Mary and Tim and Andrea Poli, we had a fantastic studio this last spring semester that was called Midtown Santa Fe Studio. And it was a collaboration between the College of Fine Arts and the School of Architecture and Planning at UNM and SFAI. And right now we're really moving forward on that cultural asset mapping. It's obviously a lot trickier given the situation with trying to be safe and social distance. But working with Esteban Real Galvez, Alicia Guzman, and Chrissy Orr, and Chris Jonas and Katie Gross at Little Globe, we have a project called the 6 Degrees of Connection, and really thinking about who our neighbors are and who we really want to hear from in the community. And so that is a really interesting project where we're seeking to gather stories and information from these communities. And so that includes Casa Alegre, La Cieneguita, Belame, Rancho Siringo, Casa del Cerro, and Hopewell Man. And so just invite people, if you think that you will be affected in any neighborhoods that I haven't mentioned, please do. We want to hear your stories. Please email us at info@sfai.org. And we're really hoping to build a strong community archive. And also we're going to be doing a little bit more work and do an open call for creative expressions. And we really hope all of this informs the development of the Midtown campus. Part of the work that we're doing with this grant is also site activations. And so although it's a little trickier now, we are thinking about ways to do that safely in the fall. And so really looking forward to getting more community input and being able to actually see each other in person on the sites safely and actually get some real activation, because I think one of the big issues is that it has been one thing for so long that what we really need to do as a community is to imagine what it can be in the future. And I think, you know, the arts and creative expression is really what we need to start thinking about that.
And James, I think Jamie did a great job. I think the only thing I would add is that the digital archive was really formulated in the studio that we had with the students this spring, and that's on its way to being public. So probably the next few weeks we'll have something out that represents a way of gathering those stories and those voices around Midtown.
That's great. And Daniel, I'd just add one thing. Sage, you want to, in fact, I want Sage to add it. Would you talk about your conversation with Brother Ron?
Sure. Yeah, we love the stories that we've received from the brothers. It's been such an amazing process to discover how much history there is for the campus. I mean, for people who grow up here, you know some of it, but the brothers have this really excellent long-running record of sort of all of the things that the campus has been, and how multiple times that place has become a economic generator for the city and a place for arts and innovation for the city. So we've talked to them about what that history looks like and ways that we might thoughtfully include it. We've even talked to Brother Ron about potentially being our resident historian, where he would be on site and available as sort of just the wise person of the community who has all this background and knowledge about the place, and he can then share that with the community and help inform what we do as we preserve the history moving forward.
So there's a question about the relationship between art and technology, and then there's a subsequent question about art and film. How do you see these things coming together, and is that part of your innovation district strategy?
Dana, there's a softball for you.
Yeah, that's a fascinating topic that we aren't going to have enough time to cover tonight, but you should be aware that the Garson Studios is on the site and has been the home of some really remarkable storytelling from the perspective of the ability to create that art media on the site, and then it is transformed into a streaming or theater experience where the world gets to see what's been created on those stages. We've been involved in New Mexico for the last 15 years doing just that, and it's a little surprising how the arts community has integrated into the film production business in New Mexico, and in specific shows that you never would have thought have a cultural impact. But some real surprises along the way, and the ability to engage the artistic members of the community in the actual filmmaking and film creation process. All the sets, all the design work, all of the artwork that you see in the films and television shows produced on these sets are all created by local artists, and they are incredibly talented. We've seen some really remarkable pieces of art created on the stages for brief shots, and then they move on to the next bit of creative work. And so the opportunity here is not only to create art and create media that's meaningful and is of interest to the world, but also to provide opportunities for employment to those very same artists who are able to work on the set for 3 or 4 days and then go on the weekend to work on their own creative efforts. So we see a full engagement of the arts community in the creation of large-scale media and even independent film, which is something we've worked very hard on at the studio level to encourage local, indigenous, and local citizens who are interested in media arts to join in the educational process, learn the media making process, which is complicated. And then you have the issue of technology, which was one of the things that was asked here. We're seeing an enormous change in technology on the stages. We're right now researching the ability to provide location backgrounds and support on stage, using LED backgrounds and green screen technology. All of this is incredibly innovative, and it's all happening on the stages in New Mexico. And our artists in New Mexico are getting trained, experienced, and are using that technology for other artistic experiences. So it's fun to watch. It's fascinating to see. And when you walk on a set and you see this incredible hand-drawn art of whatever might be that particular media or show or story is telling, you realize that was done by a local artist who was able to use those talents to create that media.
So, David, you got something?
Yeah, I'd just add briefly, I think great technology is almost always the product of great design. And great design is so close to artistic process as to be almost indistinguishable. You may have heard of the notion of design thinking. This is a fairly organized process that came out of the Stanford Design School that we use often. It's a way of approaching problems. I like architects in particular. I think I've worked with Alexi extensively over decades. There's a way of approaching these kinds of challenges that are really beautifully informed by creative process, and I think in the long run creates the most successful and beloved technologies. So back to Daniel's question, the relationship between art and technology is a very, very powerful and strong one.
So one of the questions that maybe happened last week, but I want to bring it back in this context is, so art, technology, film, are there pathways for one, training, entry level, and actually making a career out of, the innovation vision that you have? And can you describe what that might look like for someone just graduating from high school in Santa Fe?
So Becky and Megan, I may want you to take that since I think you're the ones that have the reach into the high schools.
Okay, I'll start with that. Thank you, James. So at Santa Fe Community College, we have a dual credit film program that is really pretty healthy. There are at least 160 dual credit students that take classes with us from most of the area high schools. So this gives them kind of an introduction to the industry itself. So they, students in that program obviously receive training specifically in film, but they also become familiar with the ancillary practices that are really an integral part of film. And then we also offer dual credit programs for high school students in a lot of the trades that support film. So in things like woodworking and welding and electrical work and things like that, so that even one of the things that's always pointed out to me is that there's a huge need for people in bookkeeping and business type things. So there's all of these things that some are more trade-like and artistic or craft-like than others, but we have plenty of opportunities for students to be able to start in high school, see a very clear path. Many of them, by the time they get out of high school, they're really almost ready to go to work and be certified in their trade, which to me is a really phenomenal thing. If a young student has that kind of direction and motivation, then we'll do everything we can to help them be ready as soon as they get out of high school.
So I'm going to throw a curveball here, Megan, excuse me. Malin, I can't help thinking, I've seen a few sets here and there. Do you have a wish list for YouthWorks on the site? If you have a kitchen up and running, how would you like to fit into film?
Thank you, James, and everybody. Malin Schuyler from YouthWorks. YouthWorks is one of those very adaptable organizations. We work primarily with marginalized youth who are not making it through traditional education pathways or training pathways, and we develop the skills among those young people to be able to step up and access those pathways that are offered by SFCC and higher education institutions, or going straight to trade certifications. We have knocked on the door of the film industry a number of times. Where we've been in Santa Fe for 19 years. It's always been fairly closed because there isn't a rich training ground for young people. You have to be pretty tough to just walk in and figure out how to make it. So we are certainly looking for a entry level, boots on the ground, get your hands on it, training opportunity, and then we can feed all sorts of entry level young people into the film and the arts. We're adaptable, flexible. We hunt our own money down to make sure all of those things can come together. If it's not pre-existing, we're adept at that, and we're ready to step in to this campus with our arms wide open to accept all opportunity. And we vet each young person that we're working with that has the desire to move towards a certain career, and match them to the appropriate kind of training, appropriate employer, appropriate partner. We have apprenticeships and internships that we design, and then we case manage and help our young people grow up and take flight.
All right, well, hopefully we'll get some collaboration going on that one.
Yeah,
That would
really.
be great.
This next question sort of addresses that as well. So, which is, what is your vision to harness the current entrepreneurial activity in Santa Fe? And the person gave some examples: advanced technology, value-added food manufacturing, social benefit entrepreneurship. Do you have strategies in mind? Are there partners that you're talking to right now? What is your thought about sort of this burgeoning economy that people are interested in seeing grow?
So I'm going to take a stab at a very high level. Hopefully you've started to see that, I view Midtown and our role at Midtown as creating a vessel that we can put all the various components of the innovation and collaboration together in that vessel. Let the various teammates work together, and that from there we'll see things start to jump out. Say we've got microgrid technology and the state-of-the-art water management, and some entrepreneurs show up. We may need to go out and find a way to put capital together with those entrepreneurs. At this point, we've been at 35 days, and we'd like to, we've got this team generating great ideas every week, and I think we'd like to let that cook a little bit and see what starts to rise to the surface. But a lot of times it's about getting the right people in the room and getting them working towards a common goal, and then going to figure out what you don't have. And we're already thinking capital might be something that we'd like to help help get the capital providers on the site with the entrepreneurs. I've seen that be very successful in other places. We got some places that could work really well. Any of the other teammates have a great idea they'd like to share?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We have started preliminary planning on a technology commercialization accelerator, which would support entrepreneurs working in the energy systems technology area. And one of my hopes for Midtown is that the infrastructure can be used as a magnet to attract and develop talented entrepreneurs and provide testbed facilities that can help them bring their technologies to maturation, and then support them through a series of programs that, as James said, bring them into contact with capital and other resources they need and out into full market commercialism. We think this could be a very powerful engine for economic development in Santa Fe and northern New Mexico. The resource base here with 3 universities and 2 national labs, plus the National Renewable Energy Lab in Colorado, is very, very strong. And I think with some help and support, we could nurture it into becoming a real economic development driver.
So thanks, David. That sort of provokes the next question. So what we're hearing tonight is that there's a definition, or maybe there's a pre-understanding about an innovation district. So for some people, they might think about innovation districts being totally about technology, and they think about, MIT Innovation District in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And then there's arts districts, and they might think of, I don't know, an arts district in downtown San Francisco. But what you guys are describing, it seems, and so correct me if I'm wrong, and we want an elaboration on what this means. How do you create an arts innovation district that is specific to Santa Fe? And what might it include that people would like to hear more about, that you think people would like to hear more about?
So Alexi, I may ask you to take a stab at this one. I think you may have an example or two that you've seen work.
Yeah.
And I hope no true examples, because it's going to be uniquely Santa Fe.
No, it's.
Well, I mean, I think that as I mentioned, we do have a really unique opportunity here to look big picture about what Santa Fe has been and what Santa Fe can be in the future. And I think a big part of that is creating very flexible spaces that can be adapted easily by different organizations. And the ideas that have been brought up of connecting capital and businesses and creatives all into one place and one community, I think it's a very strong one, and what we're also excited about here. I think probably the best example that we've seen in Santa Fe recently is Meow Wolf, which is one of our clients we've done several projects for, including the House Return and Return, and then their new headquarters at Caterpillar. And I think we can take some of the lessons learned from those projects and bring them into here. Won't necessarily be identical or apples to apples, but the idea of creating flexible space that can be easily adapted and integrating art into that space is something that is very strong, and I think will be a great foundation for the physical infrastructure of Midtown.
Tim, I know you've got a couple of labs you're wanting to open up as part of the aquifer that might fit into that equation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think, we're very interested in the emergent technology spectrum and looking at things like virtual reality and augmented reality, and really thinking about electronic media. I think there's a great, venue called Currents New Media that does amazing things in Santa Fe already, and being able to partner up with those institutions and think about how we can grow that network of great creatives, I think is a great opportunity. The other thing that, we talked about the Arts Lab. I think Mary was part of the Arts Lab back at UNM, and that has some great merit in terms of collaboration. Maybe Mary, you might want to be able to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of Arts Lab initially was to be able to have a space that would bring a lot of different disciplines together to work and collaborate. And I think it's a great idea, and it's still there. And sometimes it fluctuates in terms of the vibrancy of who's working there and what projects get created. But I think that, I want to say something about innovation, because it's often, attached to technology. And I think this is a time for us, and this is such an exciting way to be working together, that innovation also can forge these networks that we're talking about, because I think it is really difficult to collaborate and to truly bring different people together and to bring communities and to make the space incredibly inviting and inclusive. So I think that, I think Arts Lab and I think some of these spaces attempted to do that, and sometimes it succeeded and sometimes it didn't. And I think it's important for us to think about innovation in that way, to put it on how we're going to collaborate, how we're going to make changes and make this an incredibly powerful place in some ways, to include young people and older people and people across diverse populations. And I think it's important and exciting that we use those ideas of innovation to do that here.
Well,
I think
maybe what I'm hearing you say, Mary, is it's maybe a word that gets misinterpreted and overused. But there is something that I think that all of you were saying that's similar, in that, and correct me if I'm wrong, and one, proximity, academics, technology, film, artists, people living, and businesses thriving in a place is part of your recipe for creating an innovation district.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think
Assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, and the second assumption is there is something interesting to you about arts and innovation, creativity, that you want to capture as a way to think about the future development of Midtown. So what I'm trying to provoke out of you is define that for me, and what does that look like on a, as you develop? And yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I have the answer. I mean, I think the flexible space idea is really interesting, because then it's not, rooted, or locked down as something. If it's flexible, and I think Tim, I think he created this mobile unit that is amazing. And the fact that it's a flexible thing that can move to different communities is interesting. But, having flexible space that can be used by different organizations, by different entities, I think is a start. I don't know if I have a clear answer of what that would look like, but I think right now what we're doing, or I like this idea of like, it's still cooking, and that we're trying to figure out how it's going to be created is also part of that excitement.
Yeah, Daniel, I'd add one last kind of cap on it. It used to be that the companies that wanted talented people went and tried to get them to move to the company. And more often, we're starting to see the companies and the entrepreneurs come to the talented people. Everybody says they want to attract the creative class. Everybody wants to go and find the best and the brightest. Everybody, wants to get at the end of this pipeline that we've created to take, to create a pathway for people to get through training, education, experience, and a job, and when it works really well, people come to the people you've attracted, people you want, the innovators come to the people you've attracted. And so I think the placemaking and the people that want to be there might be the key ingredient to making this thing run.
James, I just want to add one thing to what you said. I think the element of placemaking is also part of what can define an innovation district. So it's not just about what's there, and Mary touched on this a lot. It's also about, we have a whole bunch of people here who are finding innovative ways even just to hook in with each other and find ways to create new and interesting programs and proposals and, education to career pathways that don't exist anywhere else. So I think a big part of what makes it, or at least makes this one an innovation district, is that we are creating a place where you have opportunities that didn't exist other places, because they're being put together in ways that are novel and interesting and dynamic. And I think that's a big part of what makes a successful innovation district.
Jamie?
If I could just follow up on a few comments, which are great. And I agree that, really, to me, it's the spirit of that collaborative effort, and to really think about proximity and connectivity as sort of overarching principles moving forward. that start to connect the dots, because I think that, you know, it's a lot of times when we talk about innovation, we talk about entrepreneurship and attracting entrepreneurs. I think that is important for the economy, but even more important is to lift up those people in our own community who just need that opportunity, right? And so I think a lot of YouthWorks and the, you know, the vulnerable populations that need that connectivity the most, that need the dots to be connected. And there is something quite beautiful with that note, you know, connecting that with proximity, because we all know in proximity things can happen, you know, much more than 2 + 2 = 4. And so that is kind of the underlying vision, or over, you know, the vision that we've had with these group of 9 collaborators with the Midtown Arts Alliance. So as a specific example, Daniel, we are really looking at how can art and design and social services, workforce development, education really come together physically in a space on the campus, where we will have tenant uses, but we will also have community uses. You know, some of these are very specialized facilities, and it'd be great to be able to figure out a way to open them up for community benefit. And we know that connecting all of that in proximity is going to make a huge difference. And it's going to mean that there are more people helping, for instance, in YouthWorks case, helping these young people navigate a system that is often totally inscrutable, right? And do it in creative ways. And so I think that's a huge opportunity here.
Thanks, Jamie. That's great. It grounded it. I think it grounded the question in a way that I think that I know that it's part of what people want to see, and I know that this team is, like James is saying, it's cooking it right now. But that's really helpful to ground that question, because the next question really deals with this notion that is in our innovation districts, art districts, creativity districts accessible to everyone? Or is it just people who think of themselves as creative and entrepreneurial and innovative? So I think you answered partially, Jamie, the question, but you know, will there be opportunities for people to participate in the synergies that you're trying to create in Midtown? And if so, how?
Sage, that may be the best one. You may be best to take that on because that's your passion.
Sure. Yeah, Daniel, I think that's a really great question. So, and I don't want to be redundant for people out there, but we've talked before about how, you know, we want to, it's a huge focus of ours to create spaces like a community engagement center or open shared spaces that are inviting to the community, and with the express purpose of there being a non-defined, just sort of creative energy to the space. So even if someone doesn't maybe see themselves as an artistic creative, maybe they have a project of some other type, like an engineering related project, and maybe they don't typically consider themselves to be an artistic creative. But for example, we have Erin English on our team, and she's a very, very creative engineer, and she's brilliant. And so we, you know, maybe they come on and they work with people like that to come up with some other kind of creative project or ideology. And I think the work that Jamie and Tim are doing is really critical to that, because as they mentioned, they're trying to identify voices in the community and what they're looking for. Part of our public engagement is also identifying, you know, voices in the community and what they're looking for. So part of that will get molded as the project moves forward, where we're looking at how do we create valuable spaces that offer a lot of resources to the community and offer the tools that they need to do whatever it is they want to be doing, whether that's typically considered, you know, creative or not.
Thanks, Sage. Another question. We cannot afford to lose sight of how the development will support ongoing renewal of Santa Fe's creativity, and it's part of its DNA. Who is the leader within the KDC and Sienda Partners team Midtown, who will coordinate and hold the team to task on the topics we are discussing tonight?
Can it be a committee?
I think it's a group effort.
Yeah, I just feel like, you you know, the thing, if one of us starts to flag a little bit, you know, somebody picks us up. And, you know, I think as we've added parts and pieces, and we've gotten more engaged in more specific planning around things that we all know are important. It's like the energy just builds. And I think that's very similar to my vessel kind of comment, where we have the right people in the room. And if we veer off course, if Bill and I decided to veer off course and forget something, I don't think that would last very long. We'd be reeled in by our team, focus back on what's important, and I think that's just the way it should work. We're not. I view us as more of a conductor than a player. Where, you know, our job is to, you know, everybody on this call can, you know, has an impressive resume. They have an impressive body of work. They can do all of these things on their own if they needed to be. All we have to do is try to create the opportunity for that group to work together and do the best they can. And we're not saying, yes, you have to do this. No, you can't do that. We're steering the ship. Hopefully nobody on the call is shaking their head and saying, no, that's not the way it's working.
Well, I will say from the city's perspective, you know, there's the city council approved a new division within the city structure, which is the arts and culture division, which is headed by Pauline, and she's actively involved in the early planning and future development of Midtown, and that office will be. So there will be ongoing sort of connections and collaborations between the development team Midtown and the city to make sure that arts remains a core piece of it. And as you can see, there are arts groups on the team that I'm sure will hold the whole team to task, and also, you know, inform them of things that they may not be thinking about right now since they're so embedded in arts and culture. Here's another question. Much of downtown Santa Fe and the art district, primarily Canyon Road, is directed towards very expensive high-end art for exclusive clientele. How will you include the majority of Santa Fe residents in the types of galleries, shops, et cetera, and not cater to only the wealthy?
So I'm going to take a high-level stab at that. So for me, it starts with public art. You know, I think we need to have public art that's accessible to anybody that wants to come and enjoy it. I think we then have this vision where we'd like to use some of the art assets on the site in a careful way, where you can take things that the city already owns and use those to enhance the ability of somebody to come and just, you know, enjoy the art. And you know, I think in our, you know, if we're dreaming a little bit, we'd love to have, you know, we've had success in the past. Say you're going to build a building and you want to commission a piece, try to get local artists to give you an idea, bring new works of art to the campus. And, you know, galleries, I don't know how you would compete with Canyon Road if you're going after that top tier, you know, that top end, high end customer. I think, you know, we'd much rather be more organic and more approachable and more for everybody. But, you know, we start with public art, go with some kind of an art program that can create a stream of new works coming out, use the existing art that's actually on the site to make more, you know, make it more accessible. And then, you know, hopefully it'll take on life of its own. You know, if it was up to me, there would be a group of people from the community that would come together to try to encourage and foster creation of new art pieces and new, maybe some of it's even new ways of thinking about art, because that's how you get the cool kids out. You know, it's neat. And Alexa, you got something?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to follow up on some of the points you were just making, James, and also go back to a slightly earlier question. What was all mentioned in that question was the standard traditional model of art that you have to have high priced art selling to high valued individuals, and that's how you're going to make money in the arts. I think that some of the really innovative and interesting things that Jamie's organization and other arts organizations and artists are doing in Santa Fe is really redefining what art even means. Does it even need to be commercial? Does it need to be something that's sold? Or can it be integrated into the programming of the events and the organizations that are on site? And how might that inform the overall design and layout of the redevelopment? One, to get back to your earlier question, Daniel, about how can we pull people in that might not otherwise be affiliated or really know much about art or be involved in the art scene, is to create connections out to the community. Right now, the campus is very secluded behind shopping centers and behind other pieces of property, and it's not a very visible thing. I think one of the most challenging but also most exciting parts of this opportunity is to create those connections out to Bellama and to Hope Oh Man, and how can we facilitate pedestrian connections and visibility into the campus so that you don't feel like you need to get into your car to go into a highfalutin gallery that's in the middle of the campus, but it could be more of an open urban plan that connects to the rest of the neighborhoods around there and will hopefully bring people in an organic basis to really start to understand what's happening on campus and to partake in the events and activities there.
I think it's also to add to that important to recognize that we're not trying to create a high-end exclusive community. The point of the Midtown community is that we're creating on purpose an all-inclusive space. It's not an accident that it ends up that way. So all of our development ideals, whether it's about art and innovation or about anything else we've talked about, housing or technology or anything else, we're trying to create an inclusive community. We're specifically thinking about the South Side or Hopewell Man, or we're thinking about all the different sectors of town that we want to make sure are included and present and relevant on the site. So I don't think it would ever go that direction anyway, because our whole goal is to create an inclusive community that caters to all of the different fields and areas that the city needs support in.
Well, I also, go ahead.
Sorry.
I think that I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think that in Santa Fe, there's been an overemphasis on the beautiful object. And I think what we're seeing is really a huge shift into more experience. Meow Wolf is obviously like a forerunner in that right now. But people really wanting to be more interactive with the arts. And I think that we're also seeing the lines between craft and fine art dissolving. Thank God that is happening. And I think that there's a huge opportunity here as we're talking about entrepreneurship to think about those craft arts that are so amazing in northern New Mexico and how those build into small businesses and enterprises and possibly ultimately to the labs or, the kind of technology jobs, but that to me is super exciting. And then I think that another very exciting shift that's already happening at the city is, the lodger's tax has been funding public art for so many years, and that therefore has meant it's really catered to the tourism of Santa Fe, which, as we know, is mostly downtown at the plaza. There's a huge opportunity here to rethink the funding of the arts. And I love the fact that, the Culture Connects Coalition Artist Relief Fund just immediately happened thanks to Pauline. And, but I think that we're also talking about that in terms of the nonprofit arts sector. How can we step in and rethink our funding models and how we can start to share resources and collaborate more than we typically would? I mean, it is an emergency situation, so it is an opportunity also to really rethink these paradigms, which could land quite beautifully at Midtown, and making sure that the entire community, including all of the rural areas, feel not just included, but like welcome here.
Thank you, Jamie. I have a sort of technical question come in. So many innovative technologies or modern art efforts are digital these days and require extreme high-speed internet connectivity. What is Team Midtown's plan, Team Midtown's plans for investment in high-speed internet to Midtown, the kind of speed needed to support digital visual effects, processing, and file transfer to other artists or studios.
I think we momentarily lost James, so I could speak to that, but Bill, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it is truly a function of robust infrastructure. And in our first review of the campus, that infrastructure barely exists. And the reality is it's going to have to be revisited and reimagined. But it's the backbone of business today, and arts and education and media. I mean, media probably being the best example, what the studio is going to be doing. And so I think it's going to be a function of just drilling down to the requirements of what's on place today, some of our first developments, and more importantly, long-term expectations of the full build out.
Rich, do you want to speak a little bit to because I know that you and I had talked about at one point, or Daniel, you might want to speak to it, about the 5G and what's already there and what the infrastructure that's already sort of coming towards the campus looks like right now.
This is Rich. I'm going to start by saying there is no 5G in Santa Fe. There will be no 5G in Santa Fe. We're going to frame that around broadband and wireless. Right now we have a pipeline coming from Albuquerque, a wireless broadband pipeline that comes into the state Department of IT offices. And so we're working with our local partners, and we are trying to create a program where we can bridge that digital divide, and it is to connect into Midtown for the future, so that when we talk about innovation, we're talking about the future, and the internet. Even if any of you have kids, know that the future is wireless and broadband, or not, but that is a part of what we see in the future, that wireless connectivity and broadband will be sort of a central part of what we see in the infrastructure for Midtown.
Just a quick check-in on that too. I mean, David's on your team. Bill and James know a lot about this stuff, as well as the folks at Autotrope and Biohabitats. But infrastructure, meaning all levels of infrastructure, whether it's daylighting, water systems, or the digital technology that's going to be needed to sustain future Midtown, is part of the cooking. We're just getting the ingredients together right now in the pre-development and due diligence process that the team is undertaking. So there's not a lot of knowledge right now, but that's one of the focus, it is a focus for the team as they are in this process.
And I could add one thing, Daniel, to the last question. That level of digital telecommunications and data infrastructure is essential to all infrastructures, especially from an integrated, smart design approach, which I think is what we want to get to at Midtown. So it's in many ways the essential bedrock foundation for integrating all of the infrastructures on campus, and will be extremely important.
So can I add something to that? I just got booted up. I just lost my internet connectivity, so it's really, really, really important.
Are you at Midtown?
Robust connectivity is essential to your daily life. So we're, I'll just say it this way: our first step is to find it. We found it, know where it is, and we'll then start trying to figure out how to make sure we can get it run throughout the site. David, I think you're right. It's going to run the world. If we want to do what we want to do there, we got to have good fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just to add that, James, the presence of a major movie studio and film production facility is going to require that kind of infrastructure that be as robust as possible. So I think all of the partners are going to be looking very hard at making sure that happens earlier rather than later. It's obvious that this is a key technological thing that has to be present for all of these media functions and all of the public to have access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody who's in the public listening in is that we're talking to Team Midtown, who have been engaged as of May 4th to start doing due diligence on the site for the future development of Midtown. They are just in their information gathering phase, and part of these questions and answers is about understanding the questions you may have and ideas you may have through your questions as they continue to gather information. But infrastructure is clearly one of those big questions that they don't have all the answers to yet. So they're in there, again, like I said, their information gathering phase, so they can begin developing scenarios for the future development of the Midtown site. So they're still at their day 35, as I was reminded this evening, and there's still a long path for them to proceed. But these questions and answers you ask help them think through some of the things that they are undertaking right now. And tonight we're talking about arts, innovation, and creativity, which were articulated in the Midtown Planning Guidelines. And we're learning a little bit more about their ideas, and they're learning also from you through your questions. A question came up. Have you considered any urban style art, such as murals and educational opportunities from and for local artists to engage in the entire, in a way to engage the entire population of Santa Fe?
Daniel, let me take a quick stab at that. So one of the things that I noticed when I made the first tour of the campus is there's some pretty cool murals out there right now.
Yeah.
On things like a dumpster enclosure, and a loading dock, and there are very interesting pieces that I assume students made, and we'll find out a lot more about that and make sure we know what we're dealing with. But if you want to create an inviting environment, it's almost a have to have. You think about all of the places that you might name where people love to go and enjoy themselves. Most of them have got really good, accessible public art. And that's, again, part of the way you reach back out into the communities. You find a way to work with some of the teammates we've got on this call tonight and reach out, get some ideas, have a contest. Maybe you get some people a great opportunity to come show their work in a way they wouldn't have been able to before. It's amazing what the artistic community will come up with if you give them the chance.
There's some existing resources. Oh, sorry. There's some existing resources on the site. The Greer Garson Theater, the current Scream Theater. Are you still considering those as potential public resources or resources the public can access into the future?
So Talia, we knew we invited you here for a reason. And Sage, yeah, you want to talk a little bit about the performance theater?
Or Talia, do you want to start? You can.
Yeah, so Sage brought me in to have conversations around creating a nonprofit structure that will be involved in the theater project. And we're also talking with a group of various folks who have invested interests in both the theater, the Save the Garson group, and it's still in the early stages of, what that's going to look like. But I think that's a good introduction to the nonprofit portion of that.
Good. So are you suggesting that the nonprofit entity will be one that programs and operates the Greer Garson Theater as a sort of public theater, public access theater? Is that sort of the idea?
In collaboration with other groups.
Great.
There's going to be a lot of collaboration, which I think is great because it really speaks to that, to your question about the community component. We have a lot of different and I've seen some other questions come in on the YouTube chat about this. We have a bunch of dance groups that have reached out to us, a bunch of music groups that have reached out to us, and a lot of the usage of the Greer Garson Theater is going to be as not just a theater, but a performance center. So there will be a lot of opportunity for artistic performance arts-based community engagement there. The Fogelson is another building. I know you didn't mention it. You mentioned the screen, which yes, is still going to be community oriented, but the Fogelson is going to be another place that is likely going to service a number of, we have our higher educations, we have the public library system. We have general community needs for resources, which a library typically has. So we're definitely looking at the ways that community spaces can be created in those places as well.
Hey, we've got a bit of an embarrassment of riches. If you think about the screens, there's the screen itself, there's the forum, there's the small viewing room and the library. There are the various, various theaters within the Garson. We've got we have a wealth of venues that can go from very small to very large. And with careful programming could make for some great community enrichment uses. And Dana, would you talk a little bit about how the Garson Studios might fit into a larger studio expansion plan?
James, yeah, the planning right now, or the discussion that we're having, is how to best facilitate that with careful land use and some strategic moving around of some of the assets. We think we can add a number of additional stages fairly quickly. And that's one of our goals, is to expand the number of stages so that we can have more productivity, more job creation, more productions active in Santa Fe. All of that generates more job opportunity, more economic input, and more opportunities for educational connectivity. So, when you have one production there, comes and goes, and the next one comes in, it seems to be a little bit less inviting. But when you have 3 or 4 major productions active at any one time, it gets very exciting. It gets very integrated into the community. There's a lot of economic benefits across the board, but it makes for a very exciting campus and an exciting time when you have that many people concentrating on creating media products. So we're looking to expand the number of stages. The actual number has not yet been defined. That's something that we're working very closely with the city on to determine what land uses and accesses will be. We want to make sure that it's compatible with the site overall and all the other uses that are intended for the site. But it's going to be a growth story. And we hope in the next couple of months we can share, probably in this forum, exactly what the expansion plan will be.
Another equity type question. How does the team view serving low-income people and the homeless in promoting and developing artistic talents?
I think that's probably a great starting point for Malin.
Thanks for asking that question. YouthWorks serves an entire array of young people from ages 12 to, well, I had a 29-year-old come in today. Times are strange. People are really struggling. There's a housing crisis in Santa Fe. We know that the campus is going to look at that. I don't know how the housing development's going to eke out. It's part of the awareness of the team to make sure that there's affordable housing and it's structured in a way that is addressed properly. YouthWorks serves young people who are homeless. We work with highly fragile community, and we work with their families. It's not just young people. Young people are attached to lots of other people. And I believe that our involvement on the campus will help advocate for that. I know that Santa Fe Art Institute is a huge advocate for the marginalized. I believe this entire team has this in mind, and will certainly incorporate however we can and as much as we can access and opportunity. I know the partnerships that YouthWorks holds are wide, and we can represent a passageway for many other organizations to come in that serve the fragile, low-income, homeless population, and even the people transferring through YouthWorks, because not through YouthWorks, through Santa Fe. There's many people that pass through, we can be a welcoming place at Midtown for all of that if this is planned right and we're very careful and we gently, compassionately address those needs in the proper way.
And just to follow up on that, some concrete examples of the ways in which we've done some of this work is through our Story Maps Fellowship, and had a wonderful partnership with YouthWorks just last year. That's a fellowship that's really focusing on supporting local artists who identify as Indigenous, Black, or person of color as leaders in our community to work with the city departments and also, nonprofits that are not arts related. Sarah Rivera was fantastic and worked really closely with the youth that Malin supports through her organization on poetry and spoken word, and most importantly, like telling their stories. So sometimes art is a witness to the traumas that people face, and it can be incredibly powerful just to pull those out. And that's what we're really thinking about as we move forward with this Our Town grant and the Midtown district. We're really bummed because we had actually shifted our Story Maps Fellowship this year to focus specifically with city departments, with housing and community services and the Parks Department on the Built for Zero initiative to end homelessness. And it's just been a little bit too difficult this year to really dive in with this kind of large initiative when we can't even meet in person. But we are going to bring the fellows to our Midtown project. And that to me is really about breaking down barriers and building bridges so that we can really, develop that shared sense of place and belonging.
That's great. That's cool. I do want to, although they're not here, they will be on the public engagement team participating, but Little Globe TV, I just want to put a sort of a small plug in. I watched it the other night. It was fantastic in the sense that it was about people doing their craft, their work. And I think it's also, we've talked tonight about redefining art, but it was great people doing great things, and it was really inspiring. So I think that sort of that soul is something that we want to sort of see penetrate the thinking as you guys move forward. But it sounds like you guys are on that path and expanding your networks all the time. But if you haven't seen it, it's very soulful. The last 2 episodes I've seen have been great, but this last one was about people doing their craft and working. It's really cool.
Daniel, can I add something?
Sure.
I just wanted to, just to emphasize that, the disenfranchised, people who are homeless, people who had food insecurity, that's in large part the demographic of Santa Fe Community College. So we have a pretty wide network of supports already in place to assist with a lot of those issues. And, we would be, able to replicate those services at the Midtown campus too, because we know that it's impossible for our students to really succeed without a lot of those ancillary supports that typically are what make the difference between somebody succeeding more than any kind of academic barriers.
And Daniel, I'd add one thing. One of the most attractive parts about this team, when we were considering participation, was this pathway to this access that reaches down, to populations that may not feel like they have any hope of attaining educational opportunity, job opportunity, any of those kind of things. And with these partners, we can get down, we can get out into the neighborhood, and we can get into populations that probably didn't think they had access. It helps on every level when we can say with a straight face, we're trying to put together a team here that's going to be good for Midtown, but really good for all of the surrounding neighborhoods and the entire community, because it'll maybe give somebody hope that they can go to Belen's training program, and then maybe they'd come, realize that, hey, they want to go do something at a community college, and then maybe from there go to the university and then get a job, or maybe get a job at some points along the way. And so we feel like that that continuum of opportunity was one of the most attractive things about the team on the ground here.
Yeah. I would just offer too, like you say, James, there's the perspective from the ground up, but it's also, call it, from the top down. And at the end of the day, we're talking about a healthy community. And so at the other end of that spectrum is that employer oftentimes looking for that well-tooled individual, motivated and focused through all these channels that we're talking about. Because there's an argument too on economic development that there's a war for talent, and so we're talking about encouraging and fostering talent and tools in individuals that'll be attractive to those employers too.
There are, the questions have slowed down a bit. So I think it's fine, unless I hear otherwise, that we begin to wind this down. But I'm looking at a screen of Hollywood Squares of amazing people. And I want to thank you and congratulate you also in getting to this point in this very competitive process. And just, it feels great to hear your thoughts, your early thoughts on day 35. And we will continue to work forward together. And you guys have been great partners so far, so thank you. The next, for the public, the next Meet the Developer session and the last Meet the Developer session is about housing and affordability. And so we anticipate that it'll be a lively evening and a lot of good questions. So start submitting them now, because that way we can be better prepared to answer the questions as well as we can. And that will be again on Tuesday evening, June 23rd. And we look forward to having a broad participation that night. But again, each one of you, thank you so much. I can tell in the way you answered, your face, your eyes, your smiles, your responses, that it's coming from your heart and soul. And I'm sensing that this project is beginning to kind of get under your skin the way it did with me over the past year and a half. And it will change your life. But thank you for your commitments up to this point. And James, Sage, I'll turn it over to you guys for your final comments. But again, thank you, public, for participating this evening.
Well, so I think we've been saying for a long time that Team Midtown, it's really all about the team. That this is not a top-down kind of thing. We've got a great team, got a lot of different perspectives, got a lot of good opinions. Hopefully, you're starting to see that our team is growing. That we are talking with people that may have been a part of another team or submitted on their own. We don't have all the good ideas. And, the more we talk with the community and we listen, the more we see other opportunities. And so we're really excited. And it's, it's a very unique opportunity. I've never been involved in a redevelopment project before that had the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that's available to us at Midtown, that had the team of people that want to use some of that to launch a program and get us moving quickly. And it's got its share of challenges, they all do, but we're really looking forward to conquering those challenges with the city and with the community. So thank you for being here tonight, and thanks for your questions. And we look forward to talking with you again on the 23rd. We've got our teams had a couple of meetings already, getting ready for trying to figure out how to get that conversation off and have a productive conversation. And so I think we'll be ready, and I'm sure you'll have some good questions. So talk to you then.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for the team.
Thank you.